Hi, everybody. So I'm Sharon Henley, and I'm from a company called Coincover. And first of all, I hope that you guys have all had a really great NFT festival this week. I hope you've learned a lot. And I also sincerely appreciate the fact that you guys have turned up for what is probably the last session of the event, and to listen to what I think is a pretty exciting topic around insurance, but I understand that a lot of you have come for the gamings and the free swag and a whole bunch of fun stuff, but let me try to make this as fun as possible. So, as I said, I'm Sharon and I work for a company called Coincover. Now, I have been in this space 10 years, which is an absolute lifetime. And I started kind of, I guess, accidentally, which probably is a bit like all of us. We most of us didn't think, hey, I'm going to go into this. You kind of stumbled across it. Now, my route to insurance was I got a job working at the British Royal Mint. And the British Royal Mint is that institution that's actually been around for 1100 years, and they make coins, those shiny metal objects that pretty much have gone out of fashion. Now, we kind of knew that that was going to happen, and I was working on a skunkworks project about what are we going to do with the future of money, because these shiny things are going to go away. And so back in 2012, we looked at Bitcoin and we thought, wow, that's pretty interesting. But my goodness, it's way too volatile. You can never use Bitcoin as a currency. So you couldn't pay 50p for a loaf of bread one day and $12 for the same loaf of bread the next day. But we were still really intrigued with the technology. And so we kind of thought, well, actually, we can solve this problem. And so at the British Royal Mint, we were sitting on vaults of gold. And we thought, you know what? Why don't we take the gold? Why don't we digitize it, put it on a blockchain, build out wallets? And we ended up working with some of the original providers in this space, namely BitGo, AlphaPoint, and we worked with an exchange in the US called CME. And in 2016, we launched what was then the world's first gold-backed stablecoin, originally named Royal Mint Gold. Now, why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because working for a government, as you can imagine, there were an awful lot of checks and balances and security and audits that we had to go through to make sure that this digital gold could be kept safe. We rolled up to the government. There couldn't be an instance where we lost any of our digital currency. And that took an awful lot of time. And so coming out of that, we thought, wow, we've learned an awful lot about security, technology, how to keep crypto safe. And as I said, we launched this back in 2016. And we thought, wow, you know, the industry is still new. There's a lot of people out there that are really worried. They want to get into the space, but they're worried about getting into the space because of all of the risk vectors. And ultimately, we then took that knowledge and formed Coincover. And Coincover, we kind of thought, you know, what are the biggest barriers to crypto adoption? And that's what we asked in 2018. And ultimately, we talk about safety, security, decentralization, but ultimately in this space, it's about trust and safety and security. And back in 2018, that was an issue that we tried to solve. And today, it is still an issue that we try to solve. And what we actually did is we started out with Bitcoin, and we thought, you know what, we can keep Bitcoin safe. And back then, we looked at two major risk vectors. The first risk vector was lost access. So you have a wallet, and you've lost a key, and the coins are there, but you don't have access to it. So we've heard lots of horror stories where people have discarded their hard drive. Back in the day, you know, people kept their keys and their mnemonics on a hard drive. We've heard lots of horror stories where somebody has died. They had an exchange and they died and they didn't give their wife the key or something. That's risk vector number one. The second risk vector is theft. So we hear about hacks, worms, Trojans, where you have a wallet, you've got your Bitcoin, but somebody steals it. And they were essentially how we launched our product, Coincover, protecting for those two risk vectors. Now, of course, again, this is an industry where trust is not really where it needs to be right now. And so we couldn't just go to people and say, hey, we've got loads of experience, trust us. And so what we actually did is we then spent 18 months working with Lloyd's of London, teaching them everything about crypto, about underwriting, about what the risk vectors were, how to keep it secure, what operational procedures to have in place, how to detect fraud in crypto. And 18 months later, they're right, okay, great. We understand who you are, what you do, how you keep crypto safe, and yes, we'll underwrite everything that you do. And so while we consider ourselves a technology company, everything that we do is underwritten by Lloyd's of London. So if you lose your crypto, if it gets stolen, we will give you a cash payout, and there is no deductible on that. So that's where our product started. But then, if you think about NFTs, okay, NFTs have a whole different set of risk vectors assigned to them. So it's not anymore just about the token. It's not about keeping a token safe, because we know how to do that. Really, that's kind of the easy piece. With an NFT, you've got metadata. And the metadata, as many of you probably know, is a description of the asset. And often that asset could be something like a JPEG. And the JPEG also lives somewhere else. And so you're adding elements of risk there. So somebody could hack the metadata. Somebody could hack the JPEG. You could think that you're buying an NFT with a description, and that's not the one that you're buying. You could get what they call rickrolled, where you're looking at an image that you think that you're buying that, but you're actually buying something else. On top of that, then an extra risk vector are the smart contracts. So those can be manipulated, those can be hacked. Again, all of this is adding to risk of your NFT investment. Then on top of that, you think about assurance. So we know that there are issues on a number of the platforms with fakes and counterfeits, and we have to think about actual copyright laws. Who actually did create that artwork? Who owns it? Have they ripped it off? Again, all of these elements are crucial to having a legit NFT. And then finally, the piece of how much is it worth, right? So when we insure Bitcoin, it's pretty easy to do. It's very transparent. You tell us, okay, somebody stole my Bitcoin on March 1st, and they stole 1 Bitcoin. And we can see on the public blockchain, yep, that happened. And we use something like a public price feed, such as CoinGecko, and we say, you know what was the price at Bitcoin on March 1st? And whatever it was, we basically give you a cash payout. So it's pretty transparent. But how do we do that with NFTs? Because we all know that NFTs may have been sold once. We all know that they have floor prices which are not necessarily indicative of the price of what they'll sell for, not necessarily indicative of the value of the NFT. So we also work to look at valuation. And we also work with what are certified appraisers. So I don't know if you know that in the real art world, you actually have like a chartered accountant, a lawyer. You have appraisers in the art world that are certified to appraise a piece of art. In the last year, many of them have worked on taking a methodology and applying that to digital artwork, including NFTs. And so there is now a service where you can actually get NFTs officially appraised. Now, that helps us because we can take that value to Lloyd's, and we can then underwrite NFTs for a given value. And also, just as an FYI, that is used so particularly in the US, where people are gifting NFTs to museums or to charity, if they want their deductible, they have to prove that that NFT was worth what it was if they're trying to make a claim or a deductible above 20,000. So there's obviously lots of different cases for an appraisal. So we thought, you know what? There's lots of risks here. And people want to get into NFTs. We want to help people to get NFTs. So we kind of scouted the market and said, you know, is there interest for this? And we managed to find 1,000 NFT users, and 65% of them said, so this were 1,000 customers, 500 based in the US, 500 based in the UK. 65% of consumers are worried about buying fake NFTs. We know that 37% are worried about their NFTs being stolen. We know that 44% of consumers are worried about losing the keys to their wallet that holds their NFTs. And we know that 30% of consumers are more likely to buy NFTs if there was a guarantee that they could not be lost or stolen. So we took all of that information, we took our product, we then took our learnings from what NFTs are, how to keep them safe, to keep them secure, and we came up with a new product. But before I go on to what our product is, I just wanted to kind of like remind us of the real dilemma here. We know that 20% of all Bitcoin is lost and irrecoverable. We know that OpenSea have publicly said that 80% of the NFT on its marketplace are either unoriginal or fake. They're obviously trying to do something about that, but 80% is clearly a large number of unoriginal artwork on their site. And we've heard lots of different cases about hacks and thefts of NFTs. And a recent one was to the value of 1.4 million stolen NFTs. So again, this is not an insignificant problem. So what are we going to do about it? So what Coincover does is basically cover for all of the risk vectors that I've talked about. So our product, we look at token protection, keeping your token safe. We look at authentication. So we are working with artists. We are essentially, when that NFT is minted, we are embedding a stamp of approval to say that this is the original artist. So obviously we do due diligence checks on them. We look at authenticity. We kind of go through a process to make sure that, yes, that is the artwork. We help with key storage, key recovery. We do things like backup key protection so that if you lose access to your wallet, we have a non-custodial solution, which is really important because in and of ourselves, we could never gain access to a wallet, but we can help customers retrieve their NFTs by helping them gain access to their wallet. We also provide asset storage. So that could be the token, it could be the metadata, it could be the JPEG, but we encode it, we store it so that you'll always have that original copy of the asset. As I mentioned before, we do valuation. So we look at the market, we look at floor prices, sale prices, prices of different collections, and we'll give you a range of what we think your NFT is worth, and also particularly we'll work with the artist to do that. And in the case that you want something much more specific, we have accredited appraisers that will come and also help us with assets above $20,000. Now, something that people don't really think about is what happens to your NFTs when you die. So, and that could be Bitcoin, it could be your crypto. We have a product, and in fact, 2 years ago, Coincover was the first company to actually create Bitcoin wills. And so basically, we help recover funds to a loved one in the event that the owner dies. And then, as I mentioned before, all of by Lloyd's of London. And we have no deductible, big deal for most of our, and we give a payout, a cash payout of what the NFT is worth. So all in all, trying very much to help keep crypto safe. And what I can say is that we're treading our toes. There's a lot of bad actors, lots of fakes out there, working with credible artists, with curated platforms, and we're essentially kind of going to, as I said, dip our toe carefully so that we can, when we put, we know that the artists, the platforms are legit, and hopefully we'll be announcing a program with an artist, one of the top 10 NFT artists out there. This slide, because the artist quite officially launched it, but ultimately that's what we do. So again, thank you for staying to the very last moment of the show, and this is me. And if you have any questions on NFT or want it or your platform, then come and talk to me. I'm around. Thank you.